morning, everyone. Welcome to the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. We are continuing our committee discussions of the budget. This morning we have our Public Information Office operating budget, and then we will turn to our TEBS, Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions programs. But first, let's dig into the PIO's office. And Mr. Krupe, am I turning it over to you first? Okay.
Thank you. The county executive recommends approximately $3 million fiscal year 25 operating budget for the Public Information Office. This is a significant decrease of over $4 million from the previous fiscal year, well over half of the Public Information Office's previous fiscal year budget. The reason for this decrease is the shift of the NC 311 Customer Service Center from the Public Information Office to TEBS. The Public Information Office's statement in support of this transfer is provided in the packet. The executive's recommendation also includes two categories of increases for the Public Information Office. The first is multi-program adjustments that cover personnel items, and the second are just cable fund chargebacks. Neither of these categories would need to be added to the new enhanced program list. On its racial equity and social justice evaluation, the operating budget equity tool, the Public Information Office, upon resubmittal, received a score of 6 out of 11, indicating a commitment to racial equity and social justice. The staff recommendation is approval of the executive's recommended budget. As mentioned, no increases in the executive's recommended budget would need to be added to the new enhanced programs list. Staff did not identify any possibilities for reduction, and there are two reasons for this. First, the Public Information Office is very personnel heavy. Personnel costs account for over 94% of the Public Information Office's budget, so there are very few opportunities for non-personnel related cuts. Second, with the transfer of the NC 311 Customer Service Center to TEBS, the Public Information Office is now an office with a budget of under $3 million or less.
Mr. Hudson, would you like to?
Sure. Good morning. Just wanted to start with some opening remarks and then certainly ready to address any questions. 2024 has been a year of us revisiting our past and beginning to build a department for the future. As indicated, a big part of our department is departing, and a big part of our budget in particular is leaving. So that's causing us to relook at a lot of aspects of what we do and think a little differently about how we do our work. In fiscal year 2024, which was a very busy year for us, we hired and not trained but educated 5 new staff people, and we began to revisit our structure. We hired 4 new public information officers and a new manager, and that new manager is sitting behind me here, Mary Anderson, who came to us from HHS. We began revamping and implementing our shared service model in a different way. Working with OMB over the last few years, our focus has been on building capacity to support departments so that they have the communication professional support that they need. So we've been spending time, we spent a lot of time this year aligning our new PIOs with departments, agencies, boards and commissions and initiatives to provide greater support far beyond just writing press releases. We've also implemented systems that promote consistency in the department among in our department and among PIOs and outreach staff in other departments. We developed and implemented a style guide. We have procedures for briefing memos from departments that go to the executive's office and for other purposes. We have monthly meetings, bi-monthly meetings actually, and we invite guests from different areas to talk about trends and topics of interest to the PIOs around the county. And we're collaborating with them on content and planned messaging on a regular basis. We've strengthened our relationships with the media. We've had a couple of visits to media organizations, taking PIOs there to establish relationships, in addition to meetings with editorial boards and teams. We've also, as you can see from our improved score from last year, put a greater emphasis on racial equity. We're not where we want to be, and I could talk to some of the things that we've put into place that'll get us to that very committed level next year. But we have conducted social media campaigns that highlight the diversity of Montgomery County staff, doing that for Black History Month and Hispanic Heritage Month and the like. We also took over the Espanol Facebook page and increased visits to that and engagement over the last year. We're using it in a greater way. We've worked closely with OCCP on translations for events like our budget series that we did, where we did 10 budget meetings, several in different languages. And it was not just the translation services to the folks out there. We also printed everything in the languages of the particular group that we were meeting with. We expanded our media outreach specifically to Black media, working a lot more closely with the Washington Informer, WHUR Radio FM, and the Washington Afro American newspaper. We've also forged stronger relationships with state and regional communicators and staff. We're very active with the COG PIOs. There's a group of PIOs that meet every month. RESF 15 is the group. And we're starting to form actually a social media group as well. We had a meeting earlier this week to start putting that group together. And we've been working very closely with the governor's office as well. We focused on improving engagement and expanding our reach. One of the big things that you'll hear from PIOs around the region is post-COVID engagement is down. And when I say engagement is down, I mean during COVID, if we put out a message, everybody paid attention. Now, everyone's not paying attention. They have other priorities. There are other things going on. So we've used analytics to guide our content decisions, both for our newsletter, for social media, and for other pieces. We've started to test Nextdoor as a way to get out more information that way. We're exploring LinkedIn to put out county news that really does show some of the progress we're making as a county. And we've also started streaming, thanks to some work from CCM, allowing us to do that on X, which I call Twix, Twitter X, because now we can put our information out on Twix. I'll keep using that phrase, because that's one of our largest audience, about 98,000 people there. So we're using that to try to increase engagement. And probably the biggest transition for us is the transition of 311 from PIO to TEBS. It's not just the movement of a department, but just candidly and honestly, there was a little money there that we could use for other things that we won't have any longer. So our coffers are a little lighter than they were before. But also, it changes our focus and allows us to focus primarily on communications and outreach. And the other big thing that we've been engaged in this year, which this committee is very well aware of, is reimagining broadcast and production support with the reduction of cable dollars and the change in viewing habits. So with this budget, which is 94% personnel, here's what we plan, here's what we're looking to do. We'll continue many of the activities we started in 2024 and work to enhance and refine them. We'll also be working on ways to better incorporate AI into our work and develop standards along with TEBS to do that. AI is becoming a very important tool, as you all well know, and can help us with efficiency and a number of other things. But with the help of TEBS and doing it systematically, we plan to do that a lot more in 2025. We're working to strengthen and codify our racial equity efforts. And we also look forward to participating in the BIPOC Communications Outreach Work Group from the recommendations of the OLO report. When I say we're going back to the racial equity efforts, one of the big things that we did this year that helped us a lot this year, aside from the work we did identify, and if you guys didn't know this, one of the things you have to do is identify a racial equity lead in your department. And we have identified that individual, and she will be guiding a lot of our work. Our biggest challenge, because we didn't have staff in the year before, and now that we have staff, was putting in place some of the administrative things that we needed to do. Now that we have a person in charge of that, and they're a part of our discussions and things of that nature, we're positive that a few of those things that we need to do to institutionalize it in our department will be there. Our outreach efforts and a lot of the things that we're doing are already in place, but that big piece of institutionalizing in the department is the piece that we added in. We're going to continue our outreach to the media and other organizations that can assist us in communicating with residents and businesses. And when I say media, I don't mean everyday media. We're talking about, some of the off-brand stuff that we use all the time, that there's a lot of people who pay attention to it, and we're going to start doing a lot more of that engagement. And we're also going to more aggressively seek out subscriptions to county newsletters and other sources. We have a large subscription base currently. The newsletter now goes out to about 500,000 email addresses. And not only that, we have a very strong open rate, just like many of the newsletters you all send out, about 41%. So with an engaged audience like that, we just want to go ahead and try to do what we can to enhance that, and as much as possible become our own newspaper. So that's generally some of the things that we have done and some of the things that we're planning to do in 2025. For your review, we put a couple things in the package. One of them, which I'll start with, is the assignments. In the old days, we called those beats, but since there's no more newspaper reporters like that, we've changed it to assignments. And we changed it that way for a couple of reasons. One, we want our staff to almost act like account executives with departments. They meet with departments, they find out what their needs are, and there's a lot of changes happening at the department level in terms of how they want to communicate. So they're needing a little bit more than a press release now. So we are working with them to develop marketing plans. We're also working with them on branding. We've been doing a lot of help with departments who have money on buying advertising. We're actually working with OHR right now on an advertising campaign that they're about to do, and we're working with an HHS department as well, helping them making buying decisions. So there's a lot of that work that's taking place, and the assignments do that. As you can see from the piece, at this stage we have about 57 assignments. Seems like a lot. And that ranges from boards and commissions, because there are very active boards and commissions, as you all well know. It ranges from departments, and it ranges to initiatives that may need specific assistance or help. Things like climate change or food insecurities, places like that. So we're working with them on their plans and helping them with their communication strategies. So that's what the assignments actually are. What you also have in your packet is a planned structure for 2025. We're starting to think forward about what we look like after 311. So we're looking to kind of organize our department around three core areas. One being the the PIO support group, the other being broadcast and visual content, and then the last piece being more like communication strategy and marketing. So they're kind of divided up in those areas, and we spread the staff along that way. That could still change because we're new in this structure, and we've got new folks, and as we're working with departments, we're starting to evaluate some of the changes we might make based on their needs. But that's the way that we're looking at coming into 2025 in terms of the structure and how we will do our work. So I think that's about it. Unless there are questions for me, happy to address them.
Great. Well, I just want to say thank you. I very much appreciate, the looking forward on what you're looking at for an organization chart. I think last year when we talked during the budget, there were a lot of things in flux, and I appreciate you providing this information. In addition to the changes in the racial equity score, that's great, and it's particularly for, as we talked about last year, our public information office to be doing this. It's good to see that work. And I know you have the OLO report that looked at that. We just received, I believe it was yesterday, the response from the county exec's office, so I appreciate that. The other thing I just want to raise, and it's in the packet that we're working on, is the anti-hate task force's recommendation, and there were a couple of things that may be addressed in some of the work you're doing. I think there's overlap with the OLO report, because some of the recommendations include a public-facing campaign to combat hate and bias, expanded translation, which you spoke to, inclusion of affinity group meeting and press releases, you also spoke about that, and information campaign about how to report hate crimes were some of the recommendations. So I don't know if you have some other things to add to that today, but I think we want to follow up with each of the departments, as I know the council president's office is bringing all this information together.
Yeah, and yes, we would. I will say, just at this stage of the game, we have begun to think about how we can be a part of that implementation. Obviously, we don't have the money to do the ad campaign part, but actually beginning to structure what the campaign will look like with the help of others as we do that. We'd like to begin that whenever we're ready to start, but we stand ready to support that effort 100%.
My colleagues, any questions? Councilmember Katz.
Real fast.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Barry, for being here. Well, the whole idea, and I think the transfer of 311 to TEBS is a good idea, is the right thing to do. But what is the timeline of the shift? How is it going to work?
Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of work that's been taking place over the last several months to make sure that this is a smooth transition. I can be corrected if I'm wrong. My colleague is right behind.
What do you mean? She's watching.
She's looking over my shoulder.
Literally.
Correctly. But the plan is to make that transition in terms of to make the turn right at budget.
Right at budget.
July 1. Operationally, I don't think there will be drastic differences right out the gate, but I'm pretty sure there will be some changes, new management, new team. I don't expect there to be any changes right away, but certainly coming on. So I'm sure Director Roper can talk more directly about what she thinks. But we've been working with them hand in hand for months.
So yes, we've actually established a committee of individuals that have been participating in the transition, including space needs, facilitating how we will work from an organizational perspective. You'll hear more about it with my organizational chart, and then also with the implementation of new technology. So we, as you know, have already implemented the AI chatbot, That chatbot has is capable of responding to over 100 languages. So we plan to just continue to expand that technology so that we have a call center that is able to be a next generation call center. And as Barry said, we've been working for the last several months, through my Enterprise Project Management Office to make this transition so that it is coordinated in the governance that is necessary for it to be there on day one is there.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I thank you. I just want to acknowledge, I think the chart, staff much better than last year. The improvement on racial equity, social justice score is definitely an improvement upon last year. In fact, it's an improvement upon your initial submission, where you were able to improve your score. So I think that shows a real positive. So thank you for that. I am happy about the 311 move. I have been suggesting that since the day I joined the council, where I believe that 311 is an operational challenge and not really a communications challenge, very different from a communications office. And every public agency where I have served in, those were two different functions. So it seemed to me that we had put it in a place where it didn't really make a whole lot of sense, since it really is a call center. It's an operational dynamic that we can utilize technology to solve. That I didn't personally suggest that it go into TEBS, but TEBS makes sense to me. But ultimately, it has always seemed like it should be an operational more than a communications apparatus. So I'm glad that transition is happening. I appreciate both of you for your leadership and making sure that that's a warm handoff. I did have a question. A couple questions. Of the remaining cohort, put the 311 out of what you expect to be your cohort of personnel. What's the vacancy situation? Do you have any vacant positions?
At this point, we have one vacancy, which is a SEAA, a person who retired. So we're in the process of filling that position now.
An SEAA.
An administrative, an executive.
That's the senior executive administrative aide. Okay, so none of your PIOs
None
are.
of my PIOs. They haven't run away yet.
All right, and then how do you deploy them? I mean, you mentioned at a high level the 57 different tasks.
Mm-hmm.
How do you differentiate who does what?
Really
Are people
good
responsible for particular departments?
That is, you hit the nail on the head. Here's how we differentiate. And when I say there could be adjustments to that, we're learning as we go to some extent. But what we have done is assigned specific departments, agencies, or initiatives to each of most of the PIOs, and they have on average about 14 different departments or agencies or initiatives that they're responsible for. We tried to do that division based on our knowledge at the time of how busy or demanding each of those were. So we tried to divide them up in that manner. As we move through it, to be quite candid with you, that model may not stand. It may be that we divide them up more by topics. Because what also happens is we may get a topic that 3 PIOs might share. So what we're thinking about is maybe looking at this more topical, so it might be health and human services, business, so that topically they have more of a organizational look at it and not departmentally. The way we did it is working, but I don't know if it's going to last as work continues to mount.
Yeah, and then there's differentiation between larger departments that have their own PIO.
Yes.
Shared services model, which is for the smaller departments.
That is correct. So we also have divided things up so that the departments, there is what we will call a liaison to departments that do have a PIO or communications person. And that's largely for us to do 2 things. One, kind of keep our hand on the pulse of what's happening in the unit as it relates to communications. B, allow us to deploy the resources in our department that they may need. So they may need video support. They may need event management support because we have all the things for that. They may need graphic design support because they may have a comms person but not necessarily a graphic design person. So that person's kind of a liaison in that respect. And the last piece of that is that they also make sure that they know what's going on in a department so that we can plan and not kind of, using my words, run into ourselves in the marketplace. So let's say one department might be planning a press conference and we're planning a big press conference on public safety at the same time, same day. It keeps us, we now know what's going on everywhere, and that's why we have them more as a liaison. In the case where it's a department that doesn't have somebody, the PIO is basically the PIO. But why we're doing that from the shared service model perspective is it allows us to pretty much do like shared services in OMB, support smaller departments without them having a staff person to do that work. So that's the other way we've divided things up as well.
Yeah, because, I mean, the question would be like, at what point does the department ask you for help? At what point do you go to the department?
That's really
At what
the
point
question.
is your work program determined by the departments, and at what point is it determined by the executive and the CAO? Because you're really kind of serving both, right? You're serving the second floor, and you're also serving the departments.
Yeah, and so we're in contact with our departments on a regular basis. They request a lot. So they do actually ask for things often. For example, TEBS is one of our departments. So a lot of the work that was done around the distribution of the laptops and things of that nature, we worked closely with her team on sending out press releases, trying to get publicity for it, things of that nature. So there is a good amount of requests coming in from departments, but we also ask for help that they may need on things, because what we have found over the years, and it's not just the newsletter, but just in general, sometimes departments are not the best at telling their story. So we have to ask and dig to find the story. So I'll give a perfect example. Last week we worked with the Office of Consumer Protection. They had a big push around issues around driveway, and we put a story in the newsletter. We worked with them about that, and it was the most clicked on story that last week. So to your question, Council President, it's kind of a two-way street. We meet with them to find out what's going on, or they come to us and find out and ask us for things. And when I said earlier, we're still seeing what this looks like, is now that departments know they have this service, because before we brought everyone on, we weren't as aggressive in supporting departments. We were kind of just filling orders with the limited staff that we have. Now that we have staff, we're able to actually, they know that they have support now, and they're coming to us in a much different way.
Got it. Okay. It would be helpful, as it is currently, I know you're saying that you might make some changes, to understand actually what the breakdown is for the PIO officers of who's responsible for what. It would just be helpful for us to know. So if you could share that with us.
Will.
Names would be great.
Names
Too,
of
the PIO and what they
Sure.
cover,
Sure.
would be helpful for our situational awareness as well. And if there's changes to that, then update us with those changes. I want you to have the flexibility to be able to make the changes as you need. If thematic or topical makes more sense than departmental, great.
Okay.
But ultimately, I think we should.
I think
work.
that's
So
really-
this is an improvement, but I think there's one step further, is like actually knowing. We have no differentiation among what any of these positions do and what they're responsible for. So I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Appreciate it. I'll yield back.
All right. I don't see any other questions. I think we are good to move forward with this budget. Thank you so much for coming today and continuing the work. So,
All right.
Great, all right, so then we are done with the Public Information Office operating budget. We will now move on to the Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions, TEBS. This is item on people following the agenda, item 2 through 6, and we're just going to move through the packet. For this, I'll get everyone situated, and Dr. Teregas, I think I'm going to turn it over to you to help us walk through this. I will say that the TEBS budget, again, this is only my second year doing the budgets, but last year we did actually have you all come back and do 2 meetings because there is so much in the TEBS budget. I think we can get through everything today, but I also want to say I appreciate the fact that you were here in November, in the fall, to update us on some things, on the work that you're doing on the AI chat box and bot, and I still remember the example that you gave when I asked a question about hallucinations and other things. So eager to hear about how that work is doing. But with that, Dr. Teregas, I will turn it over to you.
Right. What I'd like to do is kind of set up the morning discussion. There are a couple of issues that really cross the TEBS initiative that you may want to hear of first, and that's the racial equity and social justice, tremendous improvement from last year's budget, and also the contributions they're making to the task force that you've asked a specific focus on. So I'd like to suggest that we do those 2 things first. Then we'll march down the individual elements of the budget. I want to make a few remarks about the big ticket items in the budget itself. But if you don't mind, I'd like to suggest that we focus on the racial equity and the anti-hate task force recommendations.
And Director Roper, if you have other opening remarks that you would like to make, and you have a PowerPoint? Okay, well, why don't we start? Yes, why don't we start with the PowerPoint? If that's all right with you, and hopefully we'll address the racial equity and the anti-hate task force pieces of it, and then we'll walk through the packet.
So of course, most of what we do is about strategy. So we're very clear on our strategy and our mission. I can just mention that the racial equity score really devastated us last year. Me personally, but also my staff. So I think we, at this point, have the highest score in the county.
Yeah, we're bragging rights. Yeah.
And then the other issue related to the task force, I think that we ingrain a lot of our work around trying to be inclusive, as you know. So much of the work that we do in the community, and also as we develop strategies moving forward with 311 and the bot, also has a opportunity, I would say, for us to participate and make certain that we are responsible for the organization's ethics as we work with AI, as we talk about things like facial recognition and AI. So you'll see that kind of interwoven throughout this presentation. The whole concept of digital transformation really means that we take on a lot of responsibility as it relates to data. I think interwoven and a high priority for our budget this year is really working towards impacting the quality of the data that the entire Montgomery organization has. And a lot of our emphasis last year when we came to you was about infrastructure. So we have these layers of infrastructure, and then we are now working very clearly on the data structure. So those things that you'll see here as it relates to data classification, CRM, it's a customer relationship management system that actually the 311 organization will be using if it's approved in the budget, and it becomes more or less a system of record in terms of residents calling in. We'll make sure that information is accurate, that we have some sort of cadence in looking at that data. So I think you'll see an overarching emphasis on data and the quality of the data that we have here at Montgomery County. I'm definitely not going to read these slides yet. I talked a little bit this morning about business continuity and basically having a way to continue services in the event of a disaster, catastrophic event, but also knowing where our equipment is, knowing. I think it was Mrs. Stewart who talked this morning about the lifespan of equipment. And we know that sometimes we have in the past run equipment even twice the lifespan. So honing in on that the WDM initiative is all about having intelligence in that network. That really is what that equipment does, is it provides the intelligence that we need in FiberNet. But moving into an organization that knows where they are, knows where they need to be in the next generation of our work, but also is very much focused on situations that we could prevent going forward. So prevention is a great deal of what we do. I would never sit before you and say that we could prevent 100% of any kind of cyber event. This is just more about some of you that visited the Equinix Data Center know that we have what we call this immutable pipe that sends our data from the county operation to the Equinix Data Center. Joe is responsible for that effort. He's done a tremendous job that is being recognized nationally, and it takes most of the data that we have that is sensitive and gets it from the county to the Equinix Data Center, where we have secured backups. We've implemented quite a bit of new technologies to make sure that we can revive systems, particularly those critical systems, in the event of a situation. But we're in that Tier 4 data center, which is Tier 4 is the highest tier for the data center. I would also mention that our FiberNet system is now it is commercial ready. So we've gone from a system that sometimes didn't provide everything that we need to a system that we actually look at as an asset. I don't know if I need to elaborate on this. The one thing that I have to say about it is that cybersecurity is everywhere in the organization. It's not in a division within TEBS. It is everything that we touch, everything that you all touch, your passwords, making certain that the staff is trained, making sure that the training happens within the organization. So it has become such an important aspect of technology because of the society that we live in, that we can't just have it in one group where one person manages or one division manages it. So it's become an effort for us to not only monitor with what Mr. Young does, but also to do the training and awareness that needs to happen. Then layer AI on top of it. So, the AI aspect of cyber is critical to us. We are doing a lot of work to define AI policy. Our policies will be released shortly. They're in draft form, and that will help us to make certain that our data, particularly the sensitive data, is not put out into an open AI platform. So, I often say what we're talking about is not ChatGPT. What we're talking about here in Montgomery County is using AI for productivity. You making certain that the AI solutions that we put in place improve our ability to do the work that we do every day. ChatGPT is fun. I think President Friedson kind of called it shiny. It is. And I constantly speak on the topic. I've done quite a few. I did a television show on it. I've been to various meetings. Dr. Charegas and I are going to partner on an event in October. But we're not talking about ChatGPT. We're talking about ways to improve productivity and do away with manual processes where we can utilize ChatGPT. I asked Mrs. Taki to come in, so this is, I think, one of Mrs. Stewart's favorite topics, and that's the bot. Could you talk a little bit about the bot since it's up and running?
Absolutely. Good morning, Shana Taki, Change Management within TEBS. So when we came to you last, we talked about our exciting 2.0 version of Monty. So just as a brief reminder, 1.0 Monty was our virtual agent that we launched during the COVID pandemic in response to the extremely long hold times that our residents were experiencing when they were trying to dial into 311 for critical services. So the 1.0 version was launched with approximately 20 to 25 of the top questions that were coming in to the call center at that time. So on the 14th of March, we just launched Monty 2.0. So as opposed to the 20 questions that we had previously, we now have all 3,000 plus knowledge-based articles that the 311 call center representatives have at their fingertips is now at Monty's fingertips, and then now for the residents to be able to consume immediately on the 311 website. We're very excited about this project. It's been a labor of love. There has been a lot of education from a TEBS perspective. We've worked with our Microsoft partners, with our 311 partners on a daily basis for about a year, and that has not stopped. We have a feedback mechanism within Monty that where residents are able to thumbs up or thumbs down their interaction, and with either option they choose, they are then able to enter comments. So on a daily basis, we are reviewing those comments that are coming in through Monty. We are working with 311 immediately to address those issues. Primarily, the issues have been related to the knowledge base and not as much the technology. So we found that this generative AI solution, it shines a spotlight on your data and your content. And so, for example, if there's a broken link within the knowledge base, and somebody asks Monty, it's going to portray that broken link. And so it is continual refinement process we found. So to date, we've had, in the past month since we've launched, we've had 3,500 interactions with Monty. It is translatable with over 100 languages, as Director Roper mentioned previously, and a resident is able to initiate a conversation in their preferred language and then instantly have that conversation in that language. I would say that what we've also found is the fact that this is really kind of our first step in modernizing 311 as an AI solution. Our partners within 311 have been really excited to work on this and to see that their hard work in working through the knowledge base articles, working with departments every day, is now consumable for residents online. And so what we're really interested now in post-implementation is to see, what now is happening to the call volume coming in versus the chatbot. And certainly working with our residents continually. We did have a focus group session with residents prior to launching Monty and had a lot of valuable feedback from them. We actually had them test the technology, but we do plan to have continual focus groups with our residents to really make sure that it's meeting their needs and to get their wish list items that will then drive future enhancements of the technology.
I think we've talked about a lot of this. We talked about, the only thing I wanted to maybe emphasize as it relates to AI is the fact that we have an effort to classify our data. I mentioned that, and I just wanted to go into it a bit. And what that really means is that we will begin an effort. We're beginning an initiative with HHS, and that will be to take the data within their systems and put a tag on that data. So any of the PII, or personal information, any of the critical high-risk data will have a tag on it, and it will keep us from having the concern of anyone taking that kind of data and putting it out into an open AI. So there will be, the tags will give the data characteristics. So I would not be able to, as you could today. I would not be able to take sensitive data and put out to the open data because AI is generative. So whatever you're putting out there is open to the public. So we've started that initiative. We've been meeting with what we call our internal AI Center of Excellence to talk about that effort. We feel HHS is a good place to start because they have a high volume of sensitive data and they have some individuals in place that can partner with us on that effort. I don't think there's any way of getting around doing this. I think that, with the implementation of AI tools and vendors, we've got some contractual issues that we'll have to talk to. We've been having conferences with the attorneys around terms and conditions and what we'll have to know in terms of vendors coming in and us using their products. It's challenging the nation. It is actually challenging the nation, and it certainly is challenging local government because we have not in the past had to have such a critical eye on our data. So we'll be in better shape, I think, for this in the next 3 to 5 years as it relates to making certain that we have less risk in terms of our data being compromised. I always like to talk about the whole idea of upskilling staff. So I want to say today that all of the work that you've heard that was done with Monty, all the work that you heard, the AI development, because Monty is an AI tool that has been implemented. We've hired no consultants. This work has been done with our existing staff. We have worked to, and they're incredible. I mean, honestly, we have worked to give them the resources. We subscribe to the Gartner Group. We make sure that they have the adequate training that they need, and we've gotten incredible results with existing staff. I will not say that we won't ever come to you and say we need consultants, but the first thing that we felt was important is to have that baseline with our own organization, our own staff. Part of that is the hands-on, actually development of AI tools, but also the governance around it. So my whole team that you see sitting here today, we meet every Tuesday in person to talk about what needs to happen in terms of the conversations around AI with attorneys, with the public, with vendors, those kinds of things. So I'm awfully proud of the fact that we've been able to do a lot of this work with upskilling or reskilling existing staff. We do, and this slide represents the work that's being done by our colleague Yvonne Galick. We actually have a new way of even taking in requests to the organization. We've developed a very sophisticated intake process because our portfolio is growing. So, when we talk about all the things on our plate, honestly, I get requests into my email. Allison gets requests into her email. And honestly, sometimes they can fall through the cracks. So what we've done is we've generated an intake process that has service level agreement associated with it so that anyone coming in asking for our help, whether it's a multi-million-dollar project or whether they need a new cell phone, there's an intake process for that so that we're able to stay on top of and have a value-driven operation that serves the customers that we have. That's it.
Well, thank you for that. There's so many questions, so I think the best thing might be to go through the packet because I think we could probably spend all morning talking about AI and other things, and we'll get to that in the packet. I do want to say before we get there that you did score 11 out of 11 on the racial equity, and
Not that there's any pride there at all.
we've been joking with some of the other departments, but I do want to say that, especially given where you were last year, I know that Tiffany Ward has been working very hard to update the tool, work with departments, but to come out now with 11 out of 11 points. I just want to say congratulations and thank you for the intentionality and the work that went into that. In addition to that, we did have one of the things that now that you have 311 coming into TEBS, the Anti-Hate Task Force did talk about providing a hotline that is staffed with multilingual staff trained to provide culturally proficient services. I know that you are just getting 311. You gave us a written response that's in the packet about exploring this in the future, and we did hear about the chat bot and the ability to translate into 100 languages there. So, great.
So that's really an example of how the technology can benefit the overall objective. So when Shane and I talked about it, there is already an individual or several individuals there that do the multilingual services. But if we can automate some of that and just use them for outliers, I think we're ahead of the game.
Terrific. All right. Well, thank you for that overview. Dr. Turgis, I'm going to hand it back to you to walk us through this packet, and then at the end, if there are other big questions that we didn't get to, we can come back to them at the end.
Right. So we're going to start with the Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions budget, and it's on page 6, starts on page 6 and 7. I'll ask the numbers on the pages they're not showing. So it's page 7 is the one with the organizational chart of TEBS. Overall, the TEBS budget is growing significantly from $52 million approved in 24 to $72 million requested for 25. That's almost a 40% increase, and the executive has also provided 2 amendments for you to consider, totaling $1.9 million. So the total TEBS budget would be recommended at $22.2 million. Significant increase, so I plan to go through and make sure that you understand the reason for the increase and the rationale, and in some cases, the go forward. The first of 6 individual TEBS, Technology Enterprise Business Solutions, sub-departmental budgets for you to review is digital transformation that starts on page 7 and then continues on for 2 pages. That digital transformation, I should make a little point here. Digital transformation, Director Roper has really organizationally transformed TEBS, so it's going to make your job a lot easier to review this budget because it really is aligned now to the ultimate priorities of the county executive and of TEBS itself. Digital transformation, you see my write-up. I have no particular recommendations or concerns. I recommend that you approve the digital transformation budget at the $15.5 million level recommended by the executive. There are no items that are placed on the new or enhanced list for you to consider, so I'm simply recommending that for approval and moving on to MC311.
Any questions on the digital transformation or anything? Nope. Let's move on.
All right. We now go on page 9 to MC311. As you heard from the prior discussion, MC311 is being transferred in its entirety to the TEBS organization. This, you do not yet see it in the organizational chart. I think the organizational chart is being developed now. You heard that July 1 is the cutover time for it. As a consequence, although I kind of fully support the transfer, I'd recommend that perhaps in the mid-year you request a briefing, leaving Director Roper enough of a chance to absorb and to observe how the system works. I'm very much excited about the interface between the human element and the technology element. I think it's going to grow our MC311 vision considerably. And with that, I recommend the approved budget of the recommended budget of $5 million.
Yeah, I think it would be great if the transfer is coming July 1 to see if maybe fall or late fall we could talk, because I feel like if we wait till January, budget stuff starts. I mean, we're always doing budget, right? But I think, and even if it's just sort of a preview, but to get a sense of that, it would be great not to wait till mid-year. But thank you, Dr. Turgis, for recommending that. But definitely. All right.
I'm sorry, the next item is a significant one. It's the Office of Broadband Programs and Infrastructure Modernization. It's what gives connectivity to the entire county. It's what connects us to Ashburn, where all our data resides and our backups reside. It grows from $9 million to $15 million. And one of the reasons it's growing significantly is because of the transfer of responsibilities from the cable fund to the operating budget. This is we'll take it up at the cable event as well, but you should just know that the work continues, but the source of funding has shifted to operating budget. That's why you see this significant increase. There are several programs within the Office of Broadband Programs. One of those programs, which is the community technology and perhaps community engagement, you will also hear on May the 2nd, because my understanding is that there will be now a joint committee meeting between GEO and Econ to review outwardly facing elements of the budget, and certainly the community engagement component will be part and parcel of that joint meeting. That completes my presentation. I would urge you to approve it at the level of 15.2 million recommended by the executive.
Katz, Councilmember Katz.
I just want to ask about the franchise. Because of the FCC, will the county still have to grant franchises for cable? How does that work?
Yes, we still have franchise arrangements for cable. There are 3 franchise cable operators in the county currently: Comcast, Verizon, and
RCN, or whatever they're called this week. Yeah. Yeah.
And there are also franchises for using the right-of-way for fiber optic cable, for cell towers, things of that nature. We're in a process of initiating renegotiations or extending the difference with the 2 primary providers, Verizon and Comcast. That has been ongoing. They are slow to respond, I will say. So we don't know when they will really interact with us and activate their side. But we are required to maintain franchise agreements with cable operators for the use of the right-of-way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for all the work. So there's 46 FTEs total here, and you're eliminating a couple positions. What are the 46 positions? Could you just walk through?
Sure. I'm not sure what page number it is on.
Page 11.
Oh, which one? Oh, okay. So we have the breakdown on that spreadsheet, though. Yeah, there's a spreadsheet that we provided prior. Further, I don't know what page it is in the packet. It was right before MC 311. And we provided a comparative analysis of where we were back in April 2023 and where we are now, which we had 42 vacancies at that point, and we had filled 23 since then. And between then and now too, we've also had 21 additional vacancies due to retirements, moving on, departing the TEBS.
Council President, it's on page 9 of the packet.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry. So that's a categorization of the vacancy status.
Correct.
Which I appreciate.
Yes.
I'm asking like a more global question.
Okay.
Like, what is it that they do here? What are the 46 positions? 13 of them are moving from the cable fund. The other 33 have existed within TEBS. I'm just trying to understand. We just have numbers and kind of high level. But we don't have really a context for what we're even talking about here. So I'm just asking for that context.
I can share that. Lenny Bautista, Finance Manager for TEBS. So I don't have the list in front of me, but the 13 that we're moving are the Community Technology Group, the Community Engagement Group, and our Digital Equity. So they are currently funded by the cable plan, and they would move to increase the headcount, the FTEs to OBP to 46. And so that includes the FiberNet team. So Joe's FiberNet team, it includes also the, there's, it doesn't include telecom. Oh yeah, okay, great. So thank you, Seamus. So yeah, so it's mainly, and if you want in terms of the classes, so there's several information technology specialists. There's our audiovisual team that's part of our community engagement team. There's also our permitting and code enforcement inspectors that are part of our community technology team. 3 managers.
Sorry, what are those?
Community technology. They're the ones who go out and check the right of way, and they take all the calls for. And maybe Joe can explain more.
If there's an issue, speaking of the franchise agreement.
Exactly, yes. If a resident has an issue with a cable lying across their yard or hanging out of a tree that looks problematic or potentially a safety issue, they'll call us. Those people will investigate it, and then they'll refer it to the owner of that particular infrastructure to come out and remediate the situation, repair it, so it's no longer an issue. They also handle cable complaints. So if a resident has a complaint with one of the franchise cable operators, they will come to our office. We have a person dedicated to responding very quickly, working with the franchise operator to resolve that complaint to everyone's satisfaction.
Besides, I feel like this bill is too high. What would be an example of a complaint with a cable?
Outages, confusion about the bill, problems with service installations. We don't regulate rates. We can't regulate rates, but in terms of customer service and responsiveness, we can often influence and make sure that they're responding in a timely manner and resolving any questions there may be on an invoice, on an installation problem, on quality of service, those things of that nature.
Do those people work with like the Office of Consumer Protection?
They are in TEBS.
No, I know, but do they work with? Some of it is like truth and what you're talking about. Some of that is
not directly.
Customer side.
All those types of complaints, if they come into 311 and they're related to a cable franchise operator, they are referred to our department to resolve. So there is a relationship there, but it's not a direct relationship.
I don't have necessarily an issue with any particular dynamic here, but I do think we're like this category that we're funding together and we have in the same part of the county budget are doing completely different things. So, I think it would be helpful for future reviews to separate out the PEG team. They're doing community information. You have those who are working on broadband and those who are responding to consumer complaints. Those are completely different issues. I wouldn't even think the same management of of those entities are feeding up directly at the same place. So I know a lot of things just get layered on over the course of years and they end up in departments, and in this case we're moving from the cable fund into TEBS, and you have to find a place to park it for budget reasons. But from my perspective at least, this feels very different. Like this is a totally different dynamic, and so I really do think that we should be reviewing it and taking it up in a different way, separately as a separate line item that we look at. Unless someone can explain to me the connection that I'm missing. But as you were explaining the different areas, they seemed wildly different to me. Different types of personnel, different skill sets, different public interests that are being served.
If I can, it might help to remember that the cable plan itself is not an organizational structure. It's just a funding mechanism. The people are not actually being physically transferred anywhere. It's just where the actual finance people dub the pay that is being.
No,
they're still in the same organization.
Someone has to manage. Someone has to hire. Someone has to be monitor. I mean, where something is located in a budget is supposed to matter. So I understand that you're not physically moving out of the cable fund as it exists. That's a finance mechanism. It's an accounting change. But we have a tendency of just parking things in random places for budget reasons, and I'm only pointing out that for budget review and as we decide the best investments for taxpayer dollars, as we figure out how to prioritize, where we prioritize, where the funding is, if you looked at this budget and saw the massive increase that is happening based on a shift from the cable fund, you would have no idea what is shifting and what it is doing, because the category covers such a broad range of issues, some of which is tangentially technology. It's not even directly technology. I mean, some of it is as much public information, frankly, as it is technology. So, you know, I think it would be helpful, and I'm not saying that we should blow this all up today. This is a change that's happening this year. It's a transition. But I'm just suggesting that some thought of how to look at this, maybe some work with council staff and executive staff to think through whether this is the best categorization for a thoughtful review of the budget, and whether it puts you in the best position for changes in personnel and movement, et cetera.
The only comment I would make is that my observation coming in to the organization and beginning to understand it is two things. It's Joe's background. I think is clear that his background benefits the knowledge, but I also would say it's the institutional knowledge of those individuals does not exist anywhere. And, you know, we may have to do something as people retire, but I would say that it ended up there because of the individuals and the institutional knowledge of policy, of FCC laws, all of those things, and being supported by a outside organization, consultant, CTC, that actually designed and built the FiberNet network many years ago. So I think it's part of that.
So the connection, I'm just trying to understand. So the connection of PEG being moved into this entity is that PEG is an outgrowth of the franchise agreement, and so there's a lot of expertise on the franchise agreement. That's why it's here.
Yes, I have a lot of experience. I have to do a number of members of my team with franchise agreements, interpreting them, managing them, the funding through the franchise agreement, the interactions with the PEG channels. So the content is created here and at other studios, but it goes out over our cable television partners who have franchises with us. Some of it goes out over Facebook and a lot of other YouTube and other mechanisms as well. So I think there's some historical history there, but it's related to the expertise of interacting with franchise operators, managing them, regulating them, responding to complaints, the right-of-way, managing right-of-way and people in the right-of-way, the costs associated with that, the FCC layer, local layers. So there's a lot of complexity in terms of what goes on with the office broadband programs, our own infrastructure as well. So that historically it has been here. We can certainly look at options going forward.
Yeah, it's worth looking at. That at least makes a little bit more sense to me. I'm still trying to make the connection of the PEG operational piece with what you have shared here, but at least that makes a bit of sense. But something to look at as this move from the cable fund to the general fund occurs. But I'll yield back.
I'd
Thank you.
just like to also add that these programs have been in the Office of Broadband Programs the whole time. It's just how we've structured it. And another point that I'd like to just raise is that while it's showing as an increase here, one of the things that we were very careful to do in these cable fund shifts was to ensure that we were transferring as much funding as all of these programs, including those programs in council and PIO, in DOT and OCA, over to the general fund to offset for FY25. So while it's showing as an increase, it's fully offset with the transfer of funds for at least FY25.
So I think what would be a good follow-up, because I think, as we said before, and last year, we had 2 meetings because the TEBS budget and it's only growing, right? It's large and it's growing, and you have so many moving pieces. But Mr. Webster, what might be helpful for the Office of Broadband Programs and Infrastructure Modernization, since we have under that community engagement, community technology, data center management, digital equity, FiberNet, and telecom operations, I think what I'm hearing from my colleagues on the committee is breaking down the budget to understand this large line item in the budget, how that fits under each of those components and where we're seeing the shifts. So I think it's just drilling down, if I'm understanding the comments here a little bit more, and so that we understand this line item in the budget.
We can do that.
Great. I appreciate that. Okay? Awesome. All right, so that's Office of Broadband Programs and Infrastructure Modernization.
It brings us to the Office of Chief Information Officer. And there again, it grows from approved 13.5 million to recommended 16.7 million, a 23.7% increase. There are two items that I've noted should be going on to the new and enhanced list. One is the AI Center of Excellence, and the other is the Magic 17 expansion of incident response, because it represents a new level of service. And under the guidelines provided by the Council President, those two have to be referred. But I wanted to make sure that you understand both topics before moving on. So perhaps this is a good chance to talk. The Magic 17 is the simpler of the two, because it's an enhancement of a capability, and I wonder if someone, Joe, if you'd like to describe this 24/7, 365 enhancement.
We'll ask Mr. Young to come and speak to that.
Good morning, Keith Young. I'm the Chief Information Officer working under Gail and TEBS. And so first I want to mention Magic 17 is an internal term that we use within TEBS. It doesn't refer to a particular vendor or anything like that. It's just related to the program that we've instituted here. But the 24/7, 365 incident response, right now we've got 2 staff that work. Obviously they can't work 24/7 by 365 to discover security incidents, do the research, respond, etc. So this is to do a contracted service to do after hours and weekend support to be able to detect security incidents and respond appropriately.
I guess one of the questions I had looking at this is describe what happens now, and if there is a failure anywhere, and the need, why this is needed moving forward.
Sure. So what happens now if it's during normal business hours is it is researched by my staff, and depending upon the severity, escalated up through the appropriate levels of within the county government. If it happens at night or on the weekends, essentially it waits until the next working hour, or best effort if someone decides to check their email on the weekend. So right now there's basically a gap of a fair number of hours that would happen if the attackers were doing something nasty in the middle of the night.
And I asked some questions that if you were here for the earlier session on the public safety, is this one-time money, and is this something like a subscription service or something that will need to be upgraded in the future?
So it would be a subscription service, a contracted service. So this would be an ongoing budget need, because obviously every year we would need this type of service to occur.
Yes, Director.
I also believe if we were to hire FTEs, it would come in at a higher cost.
Any questions? No? Okay. So that's Magic 17. I think we'll move forward. Thank you for describing it, because I think that is something that we may get questions on from people paying attention. So why don't we move now to, I think, the much bigger conversation on the AI Center of Excellence.
As you see, the AI Center of Excellence was recommended by the executive at a level of $1.3 million. And my understanding is it's a consolidation of ongoing current efforts in the AI sphere. And it's consolidated under the title of a Center of Excellence, but it's really a whole raft of programs, some of them already existing, some of them just now being launched to absorb the interest of departments well beyond TEBS of the county council and our residents in terms of where is AI going to take the county government. So perhaps, Director Roper, you might want to step down the large elements on page 15, 16, 17, so that the committee understands their importance.
Certainly. So the AI Center of Excellence was designed to begin to educate, first of all, ourselves. We have not done this before. We had to come together and begin to vision what we saw as beneficial to county government as it relates to the use of AI. Our kind of pilot was the Monty Initiative, but we have fortunately been asked and had communications. The governor's office came over and met with us on the work that we're doing to better understand how they might approach AI, and also the issue around the ethical, legal, those kinds of concerns, cybersecurity, beginning to have insight, vision, and goals so that we can come to you, to the council, and work with administration to be able to not only understand but educate. So the education of our employees, and then I think the framework around it is what many local governments are doing nationally. Everybody's trying to figure it out. And New York City released a bot without, I shouldn't be criticized, but didn't have the governance that we're trying to put in place that, ended up not being very good for the organization. So our AICOE is also partnering with the private sector. We have the University of Maryland. We have students in from the iSchool. We're bringing those young people in to kind of help with intake, but also it's a way for us to educate the public and these young individuals who are majoring in these areas, but they begin to come in and see how local government can use AI as a productivity tool. So we've got 3 or 4 partnerships. The Universities of Shady Grove, we have partnership with them as well, and some of what I think you may have seen in Taipei. We're wanting to begin to bring the departments in and speak with them about what their problems are, what are their challenges, what is the DOT challenge, and not really talk about AI, but keeping in the back of our mind that, it could be a scenario where we utilize sensors and GIS and AI to solve problems. We've had quite a bit of interest from our voting division in terms of people understanding and using AI for people to know where their polls are. So it's AI is just a tool. We really had to shift the conversation, I might say strongly, away from just talking about ChatGPT, because it's not the only tool. And the other thing that we were very cautious about, if you look at what we've done to date, we have actually pointed the AI tool at our own data. So the KBAs, which are the knowledge base articles that are used by 311, there was opportunity to have a cadence around those articles to make sure that they were accurate. A lot of that has been divulged through the use of AI. What we're hearing as it relates to even our attorney's office, that there are AI tools that they'll be able to use that will be productivity. You don't have to read many case studies. They're able to summarize. So the AI Center of Excellence, we're working with organizations all over the country to look at case studies. What is being done with AI to assist with trafficking? What are the advantages to public safety as it relates to freeing up 911 because there are so many 311 calls coming into public safety. So we're somewhat at the ground level, but I can tell you that we have had conversations at night with the city of Taipei. We have had many conversations with the Gartner Group on best practices and in other organizations, and presented. Shana and I have presented at NACO to talk about what we're doing. So what we're looking for funding for is to move this framework forward, to begin to have funding to bring in some of the resources that we need to put things in motion. And I think at some point we won't, I shouldn't say I think at some point, the ship has left the station. So what we need to do now is put our arms around it and manage it for the benefit of Montgomery County.
Thank you. I have some big picture, and then we'll walk through the items. Just going back, I know you talked about in your introduction the draft policies and putting those in place, and that they're moving forward. Do you have a time for that? That we should see that. Yeah.
Yes, we're done. We're done. We're just waiting for it to get by administration review. Administration will have two policies. We call them guidelines. We have two guidelines. One will be data classification, and then the other is the AI policy. But we have completed. I think there are a couple of conversations we need to have with the attorney's office, but they're ready.
Great, because I know like the Biden administration has put out its guidelines or policies, whatever we're calling it, and a number of things. And as you mentioned before, the idea that we may have people working for our county government in departments who are like, oh, let's try this out, and we have sensitive data that should not be put into these open data sets. I think as quickly as we can get that, and please let us know how we can be of assistance here on government operations, and again, have you back once those policies are ready for prime time. I think it's going to be really important. I think I had a question on the chat bot. You talked about doing the focus groups and other things, and having over, what was it, 3,500 interactions in just a month. That's a great deal of data, even just to be able to go through. Are you also going through and doing any kind of spot checking or random checking to make sure that the information that's being provided to people is accurate?
That's a great question. Yes, we are. We have a team within TEBS, the project team, who's still fully engaged with this project. And so, yes, we do rotate that responsibility to go in ourselves and ask questions. We actually, in our testing process, pre-launch, we had a pretty extensive test plan because we needed to make sure that our testing was comprehensive across all of the county departments, all of the services we provide, and worked with Diane Boo's team for the translation, had that as part of our testing. We are continuing that testing post-implementation, and because now we are live, we are also, as I mentioned previously, taking all of the feedback that we're getting and we're testing that. So in other words, a resident may say, I didn't get the information I was looking for my recycle bin question. We will go in and try to recreate that question as best as we can based on what the feedback was to see if we can capture, is it a knowledge-based issue? Is it a broken link issue? Is it a technology issue? Do we have to go back to the grounding and the prompts within the AI tool itself? So yes, we are testing regularly.
Could I just add to that? That was a great question. And had you asked New York City that question, I think they would have come out better. But the eyes have to be on, right now, the eyes have to be on those responses to make sure that they're accurate. And it needs to become a part of your governance model that you actually have people who are assigned to do that. And that's a part of what we're doing, responding and making sure the public is aware as well.
Great. Perfect. Any other broad questions around AI? So One of the things, so this is, as we talked about just a moment ago, a large chunk in the budget, a request for TEBS, and I think one of the things I'm going to suggest, if it's okay to my colleagues, is that when this shows up for our colleagues, that is actually shown. We can have a broad category of the AI center, but that they see these line items, because I think it's really important to not just get the 1 million for the center, but to understand the breakdown of where the money is looking for. Since this is all a new request, this would be an ad, that we do that. And I'd like for us to kind of walk through that, and then to see if to hear from you all if there are any prioritizations of this, knowing that right now you are doing this internally with the budgets you have and the staff you have now. These are new requests, and looking at the next fiscal year, what are the priorities for those requests?
So there are 4 distinct categories within the 1.3 million. One is data classification. The second one is the personnel needs for the center itself. The third one is a study, and the fourth one is licensing for software. So the first one is data classification. It's going to be a huge responsibility for all county agencies. I think the county attorney has taken a significant role in this. The idea is when you do an email, when you do a Word document, you have to somehow tag it yourself with this is private, this is can be seen by the public, and so on and so forth. So we know how to trap these once they enter the AI realm. The budget request is for contractors for 2 years to help us with that classification. My understanding is an operational request. In other words, they're actually going to be looking, and you've started already some projects. To me, it's a big priority. Keith, I was in a meeting with you and the CAO where that was extensively discussed with the county attorney. I think there were still ongoing discussions. So I'd like to make sure that the committee understands, A, the time frame for classification, and also whether it affects the county council.
Anyone want to jump in?
So I'm thinking, I'm just sitting here, I'm thinking about the fact that we have decided that we're going to bite off chunks. So I mentioned earlier that our first initiative will be with HHS that has a large majority, a large percentage. I think Keith, you quoted maybe 80% of the critical data.
Of the data for HIPAA, yes.
So maybe we can go back through this and look at what we need. So this encompasses everything we need to do the whole thing. And perhaps we'll take some of the strategies that we used to take when we're doing ERP systems. Maybe we can look at these costs and narrow it down to what we need. But we will be back. So, sometimes we kind of get caught between giving it all to you and giving you partial. So I think we'll do that. We'll go back and look at it and see if what we actually need. We know that HHS has some individuals within that organization that own the data aspect of their particular systems, and then we'll come back with it. Does that make sense?
And I think also looking at, knowing this is going to be ongoing, right? It's not just a year and you're going to do this. If you wanted to give to the committee like what you feel needs to be funded in FY25, because this is critical work to get this done, and then what you're projecting for FY26 and then out again. I think that would be helpful in the broader context, and then for us to provide a recommendation to our colleagues.
One of the things we did think through is we cannot hire these job titles that you see here. We cannot hire those job titles. Those individuals are sought after. And,
yeah.
But what we could do, and what we proposed here, is to actually do term positions. And it's not typically the types of people that we've hired in the past, because we haven't been doing this type of work in the past. So it's very specific to hire a AI scientist, and you know, we don't know that maybe we can grow those skills from some of the students that we're working with. So this was our effort at putting it all out there too.
Council President.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think the suggestion is a good one. I'm excited about this initiative. I do think it would be helpful for us to really have an idea of, you know, where it would fall into the all or nothing category. I mean, my concern would be if it's all or nothing, it may be challenging. I mean, I think there will be an effort, but there's lots of competing interests and issues. But if there are certain things that, if you were to receive the funding, would allow you to move forward, and at what point is it really not something that you could move forward with? I think that breaking point and understanding and a breakdown, as the chair was suggesting, I think would be really helpful for us, and I think would make it stronger for the department and frankly for us to be able to communicate and advocate with colleagues as these final budget decisions are going to get made.
The only other thing I would say is, can we afford not to do this? Mm-hmm. And as a municipality, can we just say, well, we're not doing anything, because things are happening already as it relates to our data and having open AI available to everyone at their fingertips. So I would just ask that you consider that as well.
Absolutely, and I think for me, looking at this breakdown, what you have in the data classification, even the AI licensing, and getting a better sense of what positions, like Council President Friedson said, like, again, we understand you are doing this with the resources you have now, but which of those would help move that forward? One thing, as you're going back and looking at this, item number 3, the AI Research Center, I was just asked to take another closer look at that, because one of the questions I had, given other things that are in the county executive's budget in terms of incubators and other things, all things that we want to support because we want to grow economically here in Montgomery County, but I was curious if there could be some overlap there between some of the things that are also being put forward by the county executive. And I understand the Institute for Health Computing is focused on health, but they're doing a great deal of AI work, and is there something there to partner with? So that was just an area where I was like, it's $100,000, understanding this is like looking at things, but looking at other parts of the budget, is there a way of partnering with that? Anything else on these? All right, well, then,
Well, I was just going to say, I guess the question would be how it's reflected, because to your point.
So I was going to suggest that we get a memo back soonish from TEBS, and that as a committee we review that, and if it breaks these down, and then we can direct.
My strong suggestion would be that the memo breaks them down into 3 tranches, not according to the 1, 2, 3, 4, but taking elements of the 1, 2, 3, 4 in tranche 1, which is highest priority, strong priority, and priority, something like that. So that you may be able to convince the other council members of the importance.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important, though, in terms of the priority, to understand, like, for the AICOE, that be broken down into what would be necessary to move forward at all versus what would prevent you from moving forward. Yeah. To me, that's I think what I heard from the chair. I think we all agree on that. That would be very important for us to say, this is a binary question. If we are not able to approve at least this much, then this effort in artificial intelligence that the department feels is critical will not be able to move forward. Then we can enhance that effort with these items. That would be the next tranche or something along those lines. And then, the research, AI Research Center, related but different, and you could move forward with the other efforts without having a research center, and perhaps that could be potentially a broader discussion of incubators and other things that we're doing and how that fits in. To me, I think not all of these are created equally, and we should break them down in that way and understand them, and then I think that'll make it better for us to know.
Good. All right. Great. Perfect. All right. So, and we're really excited. And I have to say, when I was at Mako in the fall talking to folks about AI and what the state is doing, they kept saying, well, you're from Montgomery County, and you all are doing a great deal and ahead of many other places, and really leading the state. So thank you for all that work. I believe we are on strategic partnerships, page 21.
That's correct. Strategic Partnerships does have one item that is scheduled currently to go on the new and enhanced list, and that's the Azure Solution for Disaster Recovery and Archive for $960,000. The overall Strategic Partnerships budget is where the relationship of TEBS with outside vendors, who are increasingly important in terms of providing licenses, software, cloud support, and so on. So it's a very, very important program. And I wonder if someone would speak to the importance of the Azure solution and whether it's separable or whether it's an integral part of your growth. It's for $960,000 on page 21.
So Azure, as you're probably aware, is a Microsoft service for cloud computing and cloud storage. And we currently back up our data on-premise at Equinix, and our kind of backup secondary facility is at the COB data center here. And we do back up some data into Azure as a cloud solution, as another alternative versus on-premise on our own hardware. So this will be moving more of our backed up data into Azure and having less of a dependence on our own infrastructure that we maintain both here and at Equinix.
And is the, so I would imagine this is ongoing costs.
This would be an ongoing cost, correct?
Ongoing costs. And is the ultimate goal then not to have the backup here at the COB? Or?
The ultimate goal would be to have primary and operational production be out of Equinix and then back up in the cloud and not rely as much on the COB data center, correct?
Is there, in the future, cost savings for not relying as much on the COB backup?
Yes, yes. We're experiencing some now just with reduced electricity demand, reduced space down there, and we've been able to reduce a lot of hardware requirements as well with the new infrastructure that we're deploying.
Questions?
Yeah, I think we have no choice.
Thank you. All right, move forward.
The next two items came over on March 27th after the March 14th submission of the CE's recommended budget. They are for a customer relationship management, or CRM as it's called, software project study, and also for a Web 2.0 that this committee has seen intimately twice during the fiscal year 24 budget discussions. The CRM, the Web 2.0 will be taken up, as Chair Stewart, you suggested, in the joint committee with Econ on May 2nd. So the only thing in front of you on this section is the customer relationship management software project. And I should preface this by saying we have several major systems that are now 5, 10, 15 years old. They're beginning to age, some gracefully, not so gracefully. The council back in 2007, 2008 made some major investments in the $80 to $100 million range to upgrade the entire infrastructure for computers in Montgomery County. That was 12 years ago, 14 years ago. This isn't the time to discuss it, but I just want to make sure that this committee understands that there's this infrastructure that really needs support. CRM is one of the first items that the CE has pushed through and asking for $400,000 in a study. Gail?
So the opportunity here is, first of all, the CRM solution is the heartbeat of 311. It is how information moves throughout that system, from the telephony side, from the phone side, to the ability to respond to residents. I strongly believe that there will be, this study will show if there's other opportunities in other departments to utilize and consolidate using one system rather than multiple systems. I would say that the study will help us to understand redundancy throughout the organization, how we might have a deployment strategy around starting with 311 and then moving to any front office type of organization that has residents that are calling in and asking questions and providing services. So that's what this study is all about. I think it would have a significant immediate impact on 311 along with the other work that we've done.
And this is one-time funding for a study.
Yes.
Questions? No? Move forward.
This brings us to the Cable Television Communication Plan, which is the second item on the agenda for TEBS. The Cable Fund, as you've heard already, has moved from a $14 million approved budget in 2024 to a $6.5 million budget recommended in fiscal 25, plus somewhere around $7 million transferred to the general fund. So the money didn't disappear. It's simply being transferred to the general fund. What I'd like to do is, first of all, see if there's some comments from the executive staff about this major shift, which is something that the GEO committee has been asking for some time, to do something about the constant reduction in revenues and to move mission-critical programs away from the cable fund, and then to perhaps take a quick look at what remains in the cable fund. There are only three things that remain. Also being cognizant of the fact that you've asked the cable programs to come together in front of you in mid-July to give you a report on how their progress is moving along in terms of joint programming, in terms of important cuts that need to be made across the partners that make up this important group. So my suggestion is hear from the executive branch any comments for this major shift, and then perhaps take a look at the budget itself.
So we heard you all loud and clear during the OLO work session that you wanted to see us make some more strategic changes. And one of the main challenges that we've had with the Cable Fund is that there are so many competing programs within it. So a few weeks before transmitting the budget over to you, we went back to the drawing board and we started moving all of the internal service departments completely out of the Cable Fund, along with funding to cover them. We also had to make cuts to some of the FY24 and FY25 programs in order to make up for a $2.36 million shortfall between FY24 and FY25. We're seeing continued and accelerating reductions in revenue. And for the purposes of planning moving forward, we've proposed having the revenues that go to each of the partners and to the general fund be tied to the percentage that we approved in FY24. So MC, MCPS each got about 11%. So as revenues reduce in the future, we would see their share of the revenues reduce going forward. Same thing, general fund, same thing for MCM, same thing for COMO. That can still change. It's one approach to this. But I think it's important to know that with the way the revenue declines have accelerated, last year we were looking at 4 to 8% reductions every year. This year we're looking at 7.5 to up to 12% reductions year over year. It's important to build flexibility into what's left in the cable fund through having a fund balance, so that when revenues come in lower in the future, which I fully anticipate will happen, we'll have some to backfill, and we won't have to cut immediately from those programs. We won't have the flexibility to cut from TEBS in the future out of the cable fund, although we could reduce our general fund transfer. What else is there to cover on this? I know council staff has recommended potentially decreasing decreasing the cable fund balance in order to increase the general fund transfer. I would urge caution on that, specifically because of these significant reductions in revenue. I think we need to maintain a high fund balance, at least for FY26, because we keep getting surprised with further reductions beyond even our projections. In FY24, we saw a huge decline in first quarter. This year, or in FY23, we saw a huge decline in first quarter revenues. This year, the first quarter was fine, but second quarter was horrid. So it's an issue that's very much in flux, and I think we have to be prepared for that. Joe, do you have anything to add on this?
No, but happy to answer any questions.
Council President Friedson?
Yeah, just for proportionality and context, the council staff recommendation $500,000 transfer to the general fund. What is the current fund balance? Like, what would that mean in context?
Circle 47 in the packet, towards the back. There's the fund balance summary that shows you the estimated fiscal 24 fund balance and the recommended.
So it's 17.3.
So the year-end fund balance
17.3.
right now, based on second quarter, is 1.749, and that's because we have made significant reductions in FY24, primarily to programs within TEBS. We also made a reduction to what PIO was charging back to the cable fund in FY24 because they had some flexibility due to the MC311 transition. There were some positions that were being held open so that TEBS would have flexibility when TEBS took over, and that created some PC flexibility that we were able to kind of move into.
What's the variance? I mean, you were talking about quarter by quarter, like those fluctuations of.
They can be,
we're using like terms like horrid and fine, but what does that? Pardon?
hundreds of thousands of dollars. I would need to pull an older. I can get you an answer on that. I need to pull an older version of my fund balance to show.
I'll yield to Kali. I think 500,000 seems too high if we're going to do anything, so I think we should decide what to do, but I would be more comfortable to do half of that or to reconsider it. But I will say I don't think we should do more than 250,000 of the recommendation, and I would yield to colleagues if there's not a comfort level to do anything at all.
So another way I might frame this is relative to FY24 approved and what we got after second quarter revenues came in. We had a $500,000 reduction in FY24 revenue relative to what we were expecting. We had another, I think it's $1.8 million reduction relative to FY24 approved for FY25 revenues for our projections. So all told, that's $2.36 million relative to where we were for this fiscal year.
Thank you. I think that's a good suggestion. I'm concerned, first of, the cable fund is not going to go up. It's only going to go down on a quarterly basis. I mean, you might have some quarters that aren't as bad as the other quarters, but it's just going to stay on a decline. And until we know for sure, I think half of what is being suggested certainly works for me, the 250,000, and then we'll go from there. But we have to deal with reality, and that's what we're dealing with. Thank you, Ms.
I think I'll make it unanimous, and we'll put in the 250.
Great, thank you. I think that's, if you're comfortable with holding discussion on the details of the current cable allocations until July 15. You've heard that there have been reductions to the allocations according to the percentages back in fiscal 24, and you've already asked the CCMA and so on to come in front of you, so we can just move ahead.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. I thank the work that OMB has been doing, appreciate it. And, we discussed this when we had the OLO report and looked in depth at that. I see Mr. Kenny is here, and I know he's working hard with all the different groups. I don't want to have a conversation premature because I know there's a great deal of work going on, and I really appreciate that. So I think in July we'll dig into this, and I will say that, the OLO report gave quite a few recommendations that I know people are working on, and looking at how we make sure we move forward with our cable TV, the programming and other things, because it is such a vital service we have. I think it's important that we state that when we want to make sure we're continuing those vital services, and we just need to think about how we're doing that given the financial realities we're facing. And so I think we're good on this.
Great. I think we're almost done. We have 3 NDAs, non-departmental accounts, to review, and you'll be done. The first one is device class management on page 31. It's the one that makes sure that everybody has appropriate hardware, software support, the help desk, and others. There's an increase of $2.3 million in this NDA. The major component is a Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, which is an ongoing agreement. It's a contractual obligation, and Enterprise Agreement licensing is one of the key ways that TEBS is using to centralize and make sure that every single employee of Montgomery County is properly provisioned and secure. So it's got my support for sure, and I recommend your support as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're good.
Great. The second one is telecommunications, and this is one where I'm recommending a slight reduction that you may want to consider. Telecommunications provides the operating expenses for all charges incurred by departments for such as landline charges, private exchanges, and so on. But all this is becoming irrelevant because we are moving and have moved very aggressively to a cloud-based, software-defined telephony system. Last year, during your budget review of the telecommunications NDA, it was stated in writing that we expect the telecom NDA budget to be permanently reduced by the end of calendar 25, to include other modernization efforts during this period of time. Unless something has happened to slow down the excellent progress being made by TEBS, that means that there's at least half a year of savings somewhere to be had in this budget that is before you now. My recommendation is, instead of looking at half the budget, which would be $2.5 million, to perhaps consider a reduction of $1.5 million in the recommended NDA level. And I said, unless something has gone wrong between fiscal 24 and today, and this is why my friends from TEBS are here.
Thoughts on that?
So technology changes, and I think part of it is that we see some reductions related to, we started out thinking that we were going to provide one solution, but in the meantime, the telephony on the team side has improved to a point where we believe we can realize reductions because the licensing is already a part of our Microsoft Enterprise Agreement. When we started this, well, it was in place when I got here, so when we started this 4 years ago, that technology just wasn't available to us. So now that we're understanding what the needs are in the organization, we're seeing that our original thoughts that we would be reducing the number of licenses necessary on the cloud solution and pushing more of the needs to the enterprise agreement, which is already what we're paying for under our G5 licensing. So that's where we see the reductions. I wouldn't say the challenges, but realizing what that really looks like in terms of the reductions will have to come within this next year.
So,
Hi, Allison Dollar, Chief Budget Officer. So we do agree, as Director Wilfred said, that there's savings, but most like not this fiscal year, not FY25. We're asking for that consideration of cutting the telecom budget to occur in FY26. So we can, because we had, as we had noted here, reevaluate with our new teams, EA, which we just renewed in last August. So it's only been 8 months since we've been moving on this project and reevaluating from that lens and that perspective. And Joe might have more to add to that. Yeah.
The original plan was to move, wherever possible, move folks to a cloud telephony solution that was not related to Microsoft Teams telephony. Now, as we've said, with the new licensing with Microsoft Teams telephony is included, so we're looking very hard at how many employees can utilize Microsoft Teams to meet their needs for basic telecom voice services, and how many need some sort of cloud-based telecom solution for more advanced features and functionality, call center functionality, interactive voice response, call out, and things of that nature. That analysis is ongoing, but I am reluctant to commit to reducing the telecom NDA by $1.5 million this coming fiscal year until we complete that analysis and understand the full picture. There may be some cost associated with plans we've made before and modifying those plans contractually going forward.
yeah, Councilmember Katz.
Is there some number between 1.5 and I understand what Dr. Taragas is saying, and I also understand what you're saying. We're talking about $1.5 million here. Is there a number between that we could work with?
I think we would be guessing.
We would be guessing, sure. We can.
Well, every budget's a guess, you know.
Council President Friedson.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess the question is this. You're assuming nothing is going to happen. He's assuming you're going to go on a schedule that's conservatively half of a year and giving you room to run. I mean, that's essentially where we are here. You know, if $1.5 million is giving you heartburn, I can understand that. You know, I'd be comfortable at $1 million. I mean, if the world ends and you have huge needs, I mean, generally this is a one-time cost. You could figure out other options and other ways, including coming back to us. But I think assuming nothing is going to happen is not an appropriate budget response here either, given all the good work that you are doing. And something's got to give here, right? You want to do all these new things and take on all of these new, you know, opportunities in technology, which I think is great. We do have to, you know, find the savings as well. And there's going to be more new things next year, I'm sure. I don't think you're just going to implement what you're asking for this year would be my assumption. So I would, you know, suggest $1 million, and you know, if you analyze it and come back to us and come up with some huge issue where that could cause major problems that you know of, not that might happen, but that you feel confident will happen, then we can reassess. But I think that would be a reasonable.
Would it be possible, because not all the leads here are here represented to make that decision, just give us, you know, we can go back and assess and offer up, you know, the amount that we're comfortable with. That makes the best sense based on.
Yeah, well, why don't we go with $1 million, and if you come back to us with additional information that changes our mind, we could change our mind. But the burden is on the department to explain to us why, you know, we're already going less than, now twice, less than the staff recommendation was in light of concerns that you have raised, which I think are legitimate and colleagues think are legitimate. But, you know, I do think, you know, we've got to set a number here, and, you know, we're looking for savings so that we can make sure that we can fund your higher priorities as well, which, you know, are something that I would like to be able to advocate for, because I think there's a lot of support here.
Yeah, it's easier to say that TEBS cut $1.2 million and they need these other things to move forward, than not say that.
But I also have to tell you, if the world comes to an end, we got another real big problem. So, I don't know that we wanted that expression.
FY26.
Yeah. All right, so I think we
Cable
had
fund will be less of an ongoing problem.
Yeah, that would be the least of our problems. Yeah, that would be the least.
All right,
You're almost done.
I think we're almost done.
Almost done. The last NDA is for the Interagency Technology Policy and Coordination Commission, ITPCC. It's a $3,000 item, but underneath it lies an organizational item of some importance, which is how agencies outside of Montgomery County government itself, college, schools, and so on, can collaborate around technology initiatives such as AI, cybersecurity, and others. It's happening at the CIO level, I should say. But this is a law that you passed back 25, 30 years ago that says the principals of each of the agencies should get together periodically, compare notes, and make some decisions that could feed into their individual budgets on the technology affairs. There's also a subcommittee of CIOs like Ms. Roper that would take care of the technical things, but the idea is to have an empowered discussion between agency heads. That has been dormant for at least 3 years now, and you have been patient. You've been approving the $3,000 item without asking where is it going to. My understanding is paper clips and Coca-Colas, but I'm not sure. But again, I'm making the recommendation that we continue to ask the executive, the CAO, to reconvene the principals and to move on this. I just mentioned 2 words, AI and cybersecurity. They surely don't stop at the edges of Montgomery County government budget. So we have to be collaborative in this area.
Thank you, Dr. Treyes. I will note in the packet on page 36, it does note that when we were here last year, we did ask the executive branch to bring folks together and kind of look at the potential re-engagement. I don't believe that had been done. So I guess the request is going to come again that moving forward, keeping this item in the budget, but particularly, I think, given the conversation we've had on AI, that last year it may not have seen as imperative to do this, but I think there is a great need to understand across all these different entities how they're approaching AI, what they're doing, and also, Director Roper, as you talked about, moving forward with our own AI work and making sure that they understand the work that we're doing here. Council President Friedson.
Appreciate it. This has been an ongoing thing. I know this is Dr. Taragas' major issue, but there's a real opportunity here, and I think that the challenge and the frustration that all of us have had is that we haven't taken it up. I will note the people who are needed in the conversation are not here, so we're in many ways preaching to a different choir in a different church. In this sense, I just want to acknowledge that because the CIOs are meeting, they are doing their work, they're doing what is asked of them. I think we should be more specific in our asks. So I do think that we should consider having the policy committee present to this committee a report on AI coordination and progress across agencies. Something that's specific, as opposed to saying we'd like for you to meet, and they say, well, we don't have time to meet. I'd like for them to produce a report, and that probably requires a meeting. If that is something
works.
that colleagues would.
I think that works. Great.
Noted.
All right. I wrote down 5 follow-ups. Just to kind of, I think we went through all our items. At the top of the list, I think in urgency and importance is the AI budget and figuring out the center on that. We also talked about following up on the Office of Broadband Programs and Infrastructure, and also if you have any more information on the NDA that we were just talking about before, creating language on the ITPCC, having a report on AI, and then making sure that we all meet again in the fall to get an update on 311 and probably AI work as well. So that's it, right? Did I get it all? All right. Well, I just want to say thank you very much. I think we started meeting at 9:30 with the Public Safety Committee, and then went through this budget. Thank you, Dr. Torregas, and everyone for your hard work. I really appreciate it. So look forward to continuing the partnership. And with that, government operations is done.
And you have another one tonight, this
I
afternoon.
have T&E this afternoon. We're just
How much fun is this?
we're just cranking through them.